Congressman, I want to talk about the boogeyman now. We've heard about it for so long, the sequestration. Most people don't really understand it. They know we're talking about massive defense spending cuts and domestic program cuts, but I don't think most people understand when this is truly going to hit and when the average person is going to feel the effects of this sequestration, other than that Border Patrol agent.
Well, I think it's important to recognize that the legislation was passed by Congress in the last session of Congress, and they essentially gave themselves not quite 2 years, but a significant amount of time to come to an agreement, because sequestration was designed to be so cataclysmic, it was designed to be so bad that nobody would ever want to get there. It was supposed to give them an incentive to come to some deal. Well, over the course of that 18 months or so, there was no deal. They didn't come, and so now here we are at sequestration, and it's very bad public policy. It's going to impact everyone. I get calls from, I got a call from a single mother at Lackland Air Force Base with 3 kids who's about to get furloughed and wondered what the impact is. We're going to, whether you're a Border Patrolman, whether you're a civilian employee of the Department of Defense, whether you're an air traffic controller, all of these folks, you're going to see a significant change, and it's going to impact our economy at a time when our economy is finally starting to uptick.
Why couldn't, and it's fine to look back now, but the sequestration, why couldn't it have cut programs, other programs, as opposed to laying off people? Most people look at this, as I mentioned to you a while ago, look, why didn't we start with some of these entitlement programs and cut that back, as opposed to cutting back people that are out there working for a living?
Well, that's one of the most frustrating parts to me about the way that Congress passed this legislation, is the wording is such that it doesn't give the individual agencies the discretion on where to make the cuts. The Department of Defense, for example, doesn't have the authority to decide this program is more important for our national defense and therefore we're going to save it. And this program, we can wait a little while. These are designed to be across-the-board cuts. And so the agencies have no discretion but to follow the instructions that the Congress has given them, and that is the way the Congress wrote the law.
I like the across-the-board cut idea. I mean, there needs to be some across-the-board cuts, and all of us, as we were talking a while ago, everybody has to take a little bit of a hit in this. If we need, as much as I hate the thought and hate to say this, if we need to raise taxes a little bit for everybody, that's fine. But on the same end, those cuts need to come across the board for everybody as well, not just defense.
Here's my challenge with the across-the-board issue. If I tell you to cut your expenses across the board by 10%, you can't cut your mortgage by 10%. You can't cut your car payment by 10%. There's expenditures. You can cut your expenditures as a whole by 10%, but there's some things that you can't cut by 10%. You can't go renegotiate with your bank and say, oh, by the way, I've been told I have to cut my mortgage by 10%. Well, and what the Congress did is essentially some things that are it seems to me you've got to be able to know some things are more important than others. You've got to set priorities, because that is my frustration. Congress doesn't set priorities well, or at least it doesn't have a history of setting priorities well. And you've got to do some things that are really important, and you've got to do them really well, but you can't be all things to all people, and you certainly can't spread yourself so thin that all of a sudden you find yourself cutting back and you cut some of the major programs that you are really supposed to do well. Border security is a great example of something that we all talk about, we all think is important, and therefore why are we furloughing Border Patrol and Customs?
They gave me the wrap here. I want to ask you just real quick, though, how soon do we see some kind of deal put in place?
I don't know. I think it's going to be, it doesn't look pretty right now. It doesn't look good. I would say that we're going to see a couple of months of sequestration.
All right. 23rd District Congressman Pete Gallego, thanks for coming in this one. I always look forward to having